It's another day in the shop. I should have done this before. I think I mentioned earlier I was going to put the shocks upside down so that the brackets didn't interfere. And I did a little research, and these shocks, I cannot do that, so I have to put them up the right way. The problem is when they're in the mount, the casing hits the edge of the ear there. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of grinding, not much, to give a little more clearance for those. All right, so what I did is I ground a little bit of the flange out. I'm going to clean it up with a file, but basically I just cleaned it so the shock body is able to go in further, and it's now going to clear without a problem. What little material I did take off the tabs is not going to be a structural issue. I have to say, I was just looking and I noticed that the U-bolts on this plate don't come up near as far as the bolts on this plate. So I'm guessing a couple of these are different, been changed out some way or some reason. I might be replacing those completely. Okay, we now have the two spring perches, the two springs, the axle, and the U-bolt plates to hold the springs and the axle together. All cleaned up, wire brushed, sanded, used some mineral spirits to clean them up before I painted them, got primer on them. The axle's been dry enough, it can go with its first coat of paint, and we'll do that here in just a second. Well, we got the first coat of paint on the axle, on the U-joint U-bolt plates for the springs. The springs have their first coat on, and the spring perches, I did the inside of it because that's where the leaf springs are going to go, and it's going to be really hard to get into once they're back on. And I did the top of it where it's going to be against the frame. I'm going to need to paint the frame as well where they go, so I know I've got paint covering it. I did not do the outside because the outside I'm going to need to do a little bit of grinding to expose bare metal when I weld them on, and then when I paint the frame itself, when I get all the other metal work done on it, I will paint the outside of those when I do that. But it's been cleaned, it's been wire brushed, it's been sanded, it's been primed where there's any exposed metal, and we are definitely getting somewhere today. I figure tomorrow I'll put a second coat on everything, let that dry, and then I also have to wait for the spring bushings that I just ordered to arrive before I can reassemble my suspension. But some new shocks came for my truck, so I've got another project to work on when I get this stuff caught up and I'm waiting on parts. Well, my apologies. I have not been pulling the camera out as much as I should. I haven't done a whole lot of work since I got the springs and the axle painted. I have flipped the whole frame over. I have taken wire brush and sanders and cleaned up the bottom of the trailer itself. As you can see from some of the overspray, I have laid down a coat of Rust-Oleum heavy rust primer on any of the bare metal, and then I painted the underside of where the leaf spring hanger goes. It's painted on the bottom the same black, the farm implement enamel black. That's the rest of it's been painted. It's painted under there, so that way I'm going to stitch weld this on to hold it in place instead of using the U-bolts. And when I do that, I wanted painted surfaces inside there. I'm probably going to get a good industrial caulk and go all the way around the outside as well to seal, so no water gets in between those. There's a little bit of rust, a little bit more than surface rust, but it wasn't bad at all under those two pieces. And the frame itself is going to get supported. A 1x2 is going to run along the side, and it's going to be stitch welded all the way down the side so that we'll have a more rigid frame. But yeah, I got those parts done, and now what I'm working on is locating the spring hangers. I'm mounting the springs. As you can see on that side over there, I've got the spring in place. I'm working on that on this side, and then I'm going to reattach the axle to the springs so that everything's in line when I weld these on, so everything's squared up and where it should be before I weld anything together. So that's what I'm working on right now. All right, so it's all reattached. Now it's time to align it. All right, so I've been aligning these. They're 34 inches from the back of this leaf spring hanger to the very back of the trailer. And I have ran a line from the corners to the center of the tongue. And I know that these are squared, so I can go off of these with some reliability. So I'm just measuring from the back of these to the back of here, and it's 34 inches. And then I'm making sure that the leaf springs themselves are not bound on one side or the other of these leaf spring hangers. Then I'm going to tack 4 tacks, and once I get those tacks in, I'll take this off, and I'm going to drop the axle and the leaf springs and get the bushings out of there, because the bushings are going to be close enough to where I'm welding. I don't want to melt or damage those, so I'll pull all of that out when I weld. And we'll keep working on that until we have 4 good tacks on there, and we can do some welding. Now we got 4 tack welds on each leaf spring hanger, and it is now once again holding itself up. It needs a bit more before we can drive down the road, but we're getting there. So the welds are coming along. I've got them welded about 3 inches on each corner. These were the tabs that held the U-bolts for what held these leaf spring hangers on the frame from the factory. I have heated them up, bent them over. I'm now going to weld all the tabs on. They're not the prettiest welds, but they're definitely going to hold. I see a lot of penetration while I'm doing it. So, all right. Well, I've never profess to be a professional welder, but again, when I was welding, I saw really good penetration. I feel very comfortable they're going to hold. I'm thinking now that I have the tabs bent up and also welded on, all 4 of them, and have about 3 inches on each side, on each end welded, I don't think I'm going to weld in the middle. I mean, to think that this trailer was rated for 3,500 pounds, got a 3,500 pound axle underneath it, and all that was holding this together was U-bolts through these tabs, and now I've got all this weld. I feel pretty darn confident that it's good and solid. Yeah, we got all the welds done. The hangers are done. I've got new bolts for the springs, and my new spring bushings are supposed to be here tomorrow, so that's good. I have to say, the crazy part is, this is Central Oregon. This is the middle of January. Normally it is freezing outside, and I've had all my doors open. I've had a fan blowing while I've been welding so that don't have too much fumes, since I am using flux core. The garage door is open and the window is open, so everything's open. The fan was blowing, but I got the welding done. New day in the shop. So in looking at everything, the old tongue steel tube was in really bad shape. It had holes drilled in it that I did not intend on using. It is by far the worst for rust, and I decided it's a 10 gauge, which is a little over 1/8 of an inch. And when I went to the steel shop, they said that's kind of an odd gauge they don't normally carry. And I went up to a 3/16 or 0.188 walled steel tube, 3x3, and I have drilled the holes I've needed and test fitted it. It'll all be pulled apart so I can prime it and paint it and all. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. And then what we're working on right now is I got new spring bushings for the leaf springs, but everything looked like it was proper online. The bushings themselves are the right size, but the metal insets for the bushings are just a hair too long to fit the spring hangers, so I've got to grind them all down to the right size. So that's what we're working on today. So as you can see, looking at them, the old one, the old rusty one, is just a hair shorter than the new ones. So I'm going to square up my belt sander and probably mount another piece on here to make sure they're staying square, and then I'll get these ground down so I can install the springs and hopefully have a rolling trailer today. Let's go see if those work. Well, I test fitted them and they fit just like they're supposed to, so we are good to go. So we're going to start working on getting this the axle mounted, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we may have a rolling chassis by the end of the day. If you haven't noticed, I misplace things a lot. Because one of the next things, once this is a rolling frame, take it out, strip all this paint off so that I can clean it up, prep it for the RV floor frame, and then I'm going to be priming and painting everything. I think next is to start working on getting the new electric brakes and the new drums mounted to the axle so I can put the new wheels and tires on. So we're getting there. So now we're going to start working on installing the brakes. This will be the first time this trailer's ever had brakes. When they come marked left and right. And you always figure that on if you're sitting in the driver's seat. Driver's side is left, passenger side is right. So this will be the left side, right side's already over there. This is a kit I bought off Amazon. I'll try to make sure I put links down in the description. But see if I can get it out of here. This is a full kit, full brakes, and yeah, should be fairly easy to put on. Well, it's fairly uneventful to get the brakes themselves on. It's kind of interesting to see this with brakes because it's never had them before. Now I've got to pack the bearings, which I don't have a tool for. So we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. And you get grease with your fingers and you just keep working it in and working it in and working it in until you have it all covered. It takes a while doing it that way, but that's what we got to do because that's where we're at. So the joys of working on the trailer and as you continue to work on things, you realize the idea we had for this or that doesn't quite work as we expected it to as it's getting put together. For example, I bought this probably way overkill heavy-duty tongue jack that is rated to 5,000 pounds for a trailer that I hope to keep gross vehicle weight under 3,500 pounds. I was going to mount it up to the tongue here, but when you bring it in, it'll interfere with the storage box we want to build. And I was thinking about the tongue, but it won't fit. Well, then Sonia came out here today and says, well, what if you put it in backwards? Something I hadn't thought of before. So if I put it in backwards, it fits. So we're going to figure out how far forward I can move this and still clear the hitch and the truck so that we can still make good sharp turns. But the other thing is, if we do have to make sharp turns, we can always pull the pin and pull this whole jack off. But this would allow us to leave it on while we're driving down the road. All right, so with that simple suggestion from Sonia, we can have it on the tongue, which is probably better for the trailer. It won't have leverage to torque as much. It won't interfere with the box, and it's a perfect solution. So,
and we double check to make sure that you can still twirl the handle without whacking your knuckles on the box.
That was another thing we had to worry about is if we got it too close to the box. Because I was thinking about putting it up here, whacking your hand on the box, storage box all the time, which could have been a problem.
Wouldn't be fun.
Issues avoided. Yay! All right, we're moving further. Going to start working on packing the bearings and getting the hubs mounted so then I can put the new wheels and tires on here and have a rolling chassis again. Probably also today, if I get a chance, I'm going to weld the bung on the front tongue for the tongue jack. One thing I'm doing on this build is I have a folder that I'm keeping everything. I wrote down all the part numbers off of the rear seal and the inner and outer bearing for the hub. So I have all that information if I ever have to replace anything. The one thing when you do this is once the bearing is packed, the rear bearing, and you put that in place, you have a rear seal that then has to be tapped into place before it goes on to the spindle. And so that means anytime that you repack these bearings and pull the brake drum off, you've got to replace that seal, because once you pry it off, you've probably damaged it somehow. Again, I'm not a mechanic. There may be a way of doing it so not to damage it. I don't know that way. And then once I get the bearings packed, we'll get them installed and get the new tires on here. I've cleaned out the drums with brake clean before I started this process. Wiped the shoes down too because they had some indication of some oil on them. And we'll get these bearings packed and get everything put in place and have a rolling trailer. Alright, so I was down at my local Ace and I picked up some Mystic grease. It was highly rated from what I could find online while I was at the store. And we're gonna start working on this. Ooh, that is sticky, which is good. But boy, should this be fun, huh? Getting all I can off the lid before I throw the lid away. But yeah, this is going to be messy. Now, I'll probably repeat myself a lot as I'm not a mechanic. I do not do this stuff normally. I'm able to watch YouTube, but so we're just going to start working the oil, or excuse me, not the oil. Start working the grease into the bearing. Watched a guy on YouTube do this, and I think he was much neater. I'm much messier. Of course, the guy I watched on YouTube was a professional mechanic. Does this for a living. I'm just watching the videos and seeing if I can figure it out myself. I'm watching it for it to come back up through the bearings. I've went around the bottom of the wider side. Now I'm going over the thinner side, and I'm waiting for the grease to start coming through. You can kind of see it popping up there. So I'm trying to tighten it, loosen it up a little bit, tighten it, loosen it up a bit to seat the bearings. Because you don't want any side-to-side play, but you want this to be able to spin freely. Well, we're trying to finish off the day strong. We got it rolling again. The brakes are installed. Wheel bearings have been packed. Feeling pretty good about all that. I'm going to try to get the tongue jack welded on. Once I get that welded on, I think I'm going to work on the U-bolts on the axle, get those torqued down. I have some that the threads aren't very tall, so the nut is barely holding on. I don't like that, so I bought a couple of new U-bolts at a trailer supply place, which are not exactly like what's on here, but they have taller threads, so there'll be a lot of threads through the nut just for better safety. And I'll get that done, and then I think we're going to call it a day today. So I'm able to line it up with the line that Sonia helped me figure out, so I know it's positioned right. It's centered on the side of the pipe, so now we'll get a couple good tacks to hold it. Then I can pull the jack itself off, so I have a clear view to weld it around that. Well, that shouldn't go anywhere. All right, so this is what I was talking about when I was talking about some of the U-bolts for the axle don't have much thread. As you can see here, there's like virtually no thread sticking out, and I don't like that. For some reason, 2 of the U-bolts have longer bolts, and there's plenty of thread. I got brand new grade 8 self-locking nuts to go on here, but I don't like how close these are to the end of the nut, or to the end of the thread. So I went and bought new ones. They're slightly different. They have different nut, thankfully the same size, different washers, but as you can see, they have a lot more thread. And I put lock washers on those as well and cinch those down, but that's what I'm going to because I prefer the longer threads. In fact, I mean, they're like 35, 36 bucks just for the 2 U-bolts, but I might go buy 2 more of these and have 4 of these on each and then keep those as spare. But either way, we've got this side's completely cinched down, ready to go, and I'll replace the other U-bolt on the other side. The tongue jack is welded on, in position, and we've got it extended down so the trailer's sitting pretty flat. And pardon the swing there. I've had to plug the camera in, my battery was dying. And then I went with a steel wheel. Let's see, can we get a better view of that? Not really. Anyway, it's a rough country steel wheel, nothing fancy. And I went with Goodyear Wrangler Trail Runner tires. These are truck tires, SL rated truck tires. They're not a trailer tire. The reason why I went with them is they far exceed the load that this trailer will ever put on them. So they're not even close to being to their load. I think each tire can handle over 2,000 pounds, and I'm hoping to keep this trailer completely under 3,500 gross vehicle weight. The wheels can also handle it. And these tires, I talked to Discount Tire when I bought them and told them they were going on a trailer. They come with a 50,000 mile warranty and they come with a warranty. Can't remember if it's 50,000 or more, but according to Discount Tire, that warranty is covered. All I have to do is keep track of the miles I put on the trailer, which, you know, right now our Ford F-150 we use to tow has a trailer app and it logs the miles for that trailer. I'll just need to make sure I'm being really good at making sure I'm turning it on for this trailer when I'm towing it. And they are much higher speed rated than your trailer tires. So I think with the warranty being good for them, I've got road hazard on them, and they're higher speed rated. To me, for my purposes, for my desires, I think they're a better fit for this trailer, and they're going to fit our purposes hands down more than good enough. So that's why I went with an SL rated vehicle tire and not a trailer tire. Plus they do offer a little better road traction. They are mountain and snow rated, so if I do tow this in inclement weather, they'll provide me with a little better traction as well. But that's why I went with them. Feel free to leave any comments down below or any questions. I'll do my best to answer them. But I'm really happy. We got quite a ways today. It's awesome to see the tongue jack mounted. It's awesome to see the axle installed. It's just awesome to see all this coming together. Put up some of the framework the other day to work on figuring out like our shower base. We were hoping to go with a right-hand drain RV tub shower base in 24 by 32 inch size. Don't think it's going to work. We laid out where the floor would be, and if I calculated out right, a right-hand drain, the drain would come through the floor right there. And that's not going to work. So we are going to look at some other options. We may have to go with just a standard shower base. But today's project is get this trailer outside, get the stripper wheel put on the angle grinder, and start stripping this frame down to bare metal so we can look at getting this thing ready for actually welding the real frame on. That actually makes pretty quick work stripping all those paint and stickers off. Of course, we got the sun glare, so you can't see it as well. I have a feeling when I bought this, it was the only one left in the store. I have a feeling I'm gonna have to buy some more because I'm wearing through that thing pretty quick, and I've only got not even a quarter of this done, but we'll keep going and we'll show you it all when we get done. Well, I only bought one of these wheels because it's all the store had, and I thought I was going to need more. As you can tell, this one's pretty much done. But I was able to get all of this rail done to right in here. So I got a little bit left to do, but I got the whole H support done, and all the way from the tongue all the way back to here done with one wheel. Really like this wheel. It does a really, really good job of clearing the paint off. So we'll go down to the store, buy a couple more of these, and come back and get this frame stripped down and back in the garage. We managed to scrounge a couple more of those paint stripper wheels. I've got the frame stripped. Of course, the tongue's not done yet. That's all going to be taken apart. I'm going to do a new piece for down here for underneath these 3 bolts, because I don't know what this was for. This is an old boat trailer, and I don't need this. It's actually in the way. So I'm going to get, this is just flat piece. I'm going to get a piece of angle iron and cut it and drill it for these 3 bolts. That way it's all tucked up underneath here, but being angle iron should be stronger than this as well. So that's what I'm going to do there. So I need to take all of this apart. The whole tongue itself needs to be cleaned and painted all up underneath where everything bolts to before it gets permanently put back together. And I need to buy new hardware. These are grade 5 bolts. I'm probably, like I did on the suspension, going to step up to grade 8 bolts. We'll see. And I also need to finish stripping these main trailer frame rails all the way up as well, and clean the rails out. But then got that all stripped. I've got 4 main struts over here cut. Those pieces there are, 2 of them are going to be the outside of the trailer floor frame, and 2 of them are going to run alongside the main frame rails on this trailer to give it support. So it'll be right along those frame rails there. They're going to be stitch welded on and then extend straight out to where the far cross piece will go. And then I've got 7 of the 9 cross bars cut. 2 of them will not be the full length 7-footers. 2 of them will be shorter because they go around the wheel well, and then I need to work around where the fender's going, how the fender's getting welded in, all of that. But I think I'm to the point where I need to clean some stuff up, roll the trailer back in the garage, and start laying frame down and figuring out where it goes. And once I get it squared and ready, I can hopefully start tack welding. So wish me luck. All right, we got the back piece centered on the frame. I measured the frame to the center of the tongue and it was square, so I'm going on that being square. I just measured its 8 3/4 of an inch overhang on both sides of the frame, and I measured that to the tongue, center tongue bolt, and it's like within a 32nd of an inch of square to the frame where it sits now. So I'm going to call that good. Well, I got a little ahead of myself and haven't been filming today, but we're getting the frame put in and tack welded on. Got the outside squared, leveled. Now I'm working on the cross beams. I got 4 out of the 7 I have cut done. The other 2 that go in here and here, both of those will be shorter because the wheel will sit in place. Last night we sat down with the fenders, and don't know if you can really see it on video, but there's marks there. We set the fenders on the tires, used spacers to make sure they were spaced properly, and then marked where I need to cut this side rail for the fenders. I want to get all of the cross pieces tack welded in place before I cut those. But I'm going to need to cut them, put the tires back on, use the spacers to space the fender, and then weld the fender on. The fender will be welded on both locations where it's cut, and then when I build this other framework for these other 2 cross pieces, I'm going to probably use some of my scrap pieces and weld some of the 1x2 tubing onto the back side of the fender so it's got support on the back side as well. All right, we got 7 of the 9 cross braces put in. Try and decide if I start doing the fender right away, or I've got 2 other long pieces that are as long as this outside. That is 12.5 feet long. I've got 2 more cut. They're going to go along the outside of each frame rail, welded to the frame and welded to all of these for added support, especially out here where it's further away from the frame. Tripping on stuff over here, so it'll give me an extra support coming in right about here, all the way the full length, welded to each cross support and the main frame. It'll also help stiffen the frame up. I might put those on first and tack those in place, but then I need to draw the lines, cut the steel where the fenders go, put the wheels and tires back on, and work on that. Well, I've got it clamped in place. This is the bar I was talking about. This is a full length piece that extends out past where the tongue goes in. I'm doing this on both sides. It's going to be welded to each of the supports and the frame all the way down. It'll help stiffen the frame up. I'm also going to take a couple extra pieces I have and add here to the tongue as well. Same kind of idea. Weld a piece of the 14 gauge 1x2 tubing onto the tongue to help beef it up, make it stronger. And again, these will be on both sides. I've just got this one lined up and ready to go, so we'll tack weld this one in and go from there. Another day in the shop. Pretty sure where we left off last time was I had got the side supports tacked in, the whole frame other than the 2 pieces that won't fit till I get the fenders fitted and know what space I have in there. They're not fitted yet, but everything's tacked in just 1 point per connection. So I'm going to go around the whole frame and put a second tack in every join. So like this one has one here, I'm going to do one on this side. So there's 2 tacks at every location. Once I get that done, I am going to use the marks I have done on the side pieces of where the fender location is going to be, get the fender locations marked and cut so I can reinstall the wheels, use the spacers to put the fenders in place, get the fenders tacked in, and then I think once I get that far, I'm either going to work on the main beams going across here and get that tacked in, or I'm going to wheel this thing outside and start welding what I have tacked already. All right, well, this should be fun. It's kind of nerve-wracking. Did all our spacing with the wheels and tires on, lined up and put marks on the metal so I knew where to cut for the fenders. Got both of them lined out here and marked. Now I need to cut it. But I tell you, it's very nerve-wracking to be cutting this. If I screw it up If it's in the wrong spot, if I cut it too big, it's not going to be easy to fix. So to say I'm a little nervous is definitely an understatement, but we're going to cut these out. Then I can put the wheels and tires back on, set it back down on the ground, line up the fenders, and hopefully tack the fenders in, as long as I don't mess it up. Well, it took some grinding and some trimming, but both fenders are on. The spacers fit like they're supposed to. Now I just need to level things up, space it properly. Sorry about the background traffic noise. But get it leveled up, get it fit where it should be, and then I can tack the fenders on. And then I think I'm gonna go ahead and start working on the supports back here, because I'm going to do some type of support on the back of the fender to beef it up as well. Not exactly sure what I'm going to do there yet, but it's not just going to be welded here on the frame, but I'm going to have something coming off the back frame up to the top middle of the fender to strengthen it up that way too. So we'll get it all sorted and get these tacked on. That'll be a huge thing. All right, I've double, triple, and quadruple checked these fenders. It's the best I can do. I've laid the bar across the top. That makes it level on both fenders. I've got my spacers in place so they're both equally spaced. I've measured, I've double checked it. I don't know what else to do as far as that goes. I think I'm going to leave that bar on the top to help hold the fenders in place along with all my spacers, and I'm going to go ahead and tack where each of these bars here come up into the fender itself. I'm going to tack weld the fenders in on both sides, and then I'm going to work on, I've got these bars cut, I've got to space them where I want them and get these tacked in, and then build some type of system to help hold the center top of the fender from there as well. Not exactly sure how I'm going to do it. One of the thoughts I've had is, sorry for the bumpy camera, I'm taking a glove off. One of the thoughts I've had is bring a piece up from here and then weld a scrap piece of this onto the top of the fender and onto that piece. But again, I'm not 100% sure, and I don't know how much spacing I want between the tire and this piece. This will help protect the trailer in case of any blowout, but I don't think I want it that close. I definitely think I want it further away. I just haven't figured out quite yet how far that's going to be. But we'll get the fenders tacked on here, and then we'll go from there. This is going to bring to an end the first part of working on the frame. Got a lot done on this video, and the second part of the frame video, fingers crossed, we'll have the whole frame painted and the decking on and ready to actually start building the RV itself. Got some pretty exciting things coming. I hope you're enjoying the videos on this trailer build. Hope you're getting some entertainment out of it. Not sure you're going to get much how to do things out of it, but still been having a lot of fun working on it, and as always, thank you so much for taking time out of your days to watch our videos. We really do appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one.